the entire narrative is still how the Fed is trying to do quantitative tightening, how the Fed is also raising interest rates. It's the opposite basically of how we saw things in 2020, and that's creating a larger narrative for the entire equity market, not just in the Philippines but also globally. Robinson's commercial REIT, if you notice it, it's following almost the same progression. The 50-day moving average is acting as its resistance right now. The resistance for RCR is at 6.61. Its current support is at 6 pesos per share. So this is PhilREIT. So our resistance for PhilREIT right now is around 7.4. You have another resistance at 7.086. Hey guys, so we're back once again for another stocks by request session, and as I did our stocks by request last week, a lot of you guys were asking if I could do a technical analysis on REITs that we have on the market, at least for the Philippine stock market. And my main narrative when investing in REITs is basically buy the REIT, get the dividend, hold onto it for a long period of time, and just get cash flow. But as you all know also, REITs, similar to other stocks or other assets as well, they fluctuate because they're driven by supply and demand. That being said, it could be a play for you for dividends, investing, long-term holding, but if done properly, done with the proper rudiments of technical analysis, using the right amount of support and resistance also, it could be used for you to be able to trade. So in this video, we're gonna talk about REITs listed in the Philippines, analyzed from the lens of technical analysis, and using support and resistance and a couple of indicators that I normally use for you to be able to decide if it's worth trading or not, and where is it right now in the grand scheme of things, given that while we're doing this, there's a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt in the broad markets, in the US markets, in the crypto markets, and even in the Philippine markets as well. I'll start everything off with the first REIT that we had in the Philippines, one of the most successful REITs. I want to talk about a REIT. So for a REIT, if you try to look at it at least from a trend perspective, it's way below the 200-day moving average, it's way below the 100-day moving average, it's also below the 50-day moving average, which if I'll try to peg it also right now, the 50-day moving average is what's acting as its short-term resistance right now. It's somewhere around the, you could peg it at the 37.67 mark, and you also have a support right here at the 34.21 mark. So very, very evident at the start of July, it hit the support at 34.21, held its ground, then started to bounce right here. So one thing to watch out for, at least for next week, is this: failure to break out from the 50-day moving average, failure to break out from the 37.67 resistance may result into this possible retracement, maybe back into the 20-day moving average, which is somewhere around 36, or if that does not hold, then it goes back down to this channel range of 34.21. So please write this down. The stock, a REIT, or the REIT right now is close to the resistance, 37.67. The distance between it and the support, it's closer to the resistance, giving you a notion that if you have cash, maybe you should wait until it goes back to the support, or if you own it, more evidence that it fails to break out the resistance could be an action also for you to take profits as well. I forgot to mention this, but the distance between support and resistance, this is around a 10% trade. One thing to watch out for also is that if it breaks out from 37.67, should it break out and stay above the 37.67 range, then that could be a breakout scenario where you could consider also, okay, it's breaking out, should I consider buying it? So one thing that you should look out for when it breaks out is if it stays above that range, and after a breakout, that's about 10% from the breakout point as well. I just want to add this, looking at it from a trend scenario, I want to show this also, that it's still consistent with the 50-day moving average also, as its underlying downward trending slope right now. So we are in the midst still of a 3 to 4 month midterm downtrend at the very least for a REIT, which is also, at least from a MACD perspective, confirming whatever downward projection that's here. What's confirming the resistance at the 37.67 mark, you can also look at it here. We have an RSI cross down also for the short term. So two different segments on how you analyze it if you are a person that's trading the range: 34.21 support, 37.67 resistance, 49.97 resistance. If you're trading the trend, you're looking at it from a trending perspective, look at the line that I drew, look at the 50-day moving average, and look at also where it is from the 100 and 200-day moving average. Next is I want to look at MREIT as well. So for MREIT, if you notice it, it's moving similar to how AREIT is looking, that the 50-day moving average is acting as its level of resistance, and it has also bounced off a level of support. So for MREIT, the support is at 15.09, the resistance is at 16.04. Failure to break out from the 16.04 level constitutes a retracement to the 20-day moving average, which is about 15.56, or it goes back to the channel of 15.09. However, similar to ADI, next possible resistance for this is right here, 17.35. So you can write this down. Resistance 16.04, failure to break out, retracement to 15.09, breakout from 16.4. Next possible resistance is at the 17.35 mark. I guess one of the differences though from this and AREIT is that if you draw a downward trending slope right here, it's trying already to break away. So either two things could happen. It breaks out from the 50-day moving average and then we see more upward movement, or it just consolidates right here in this very, very thin and narrow range, or there could be also a consolidation here. So let's see how it goes. Please do remember, from a global perspective, it's still basically the entire narrative is still how the Fed is trying to do quantitative tightening, how the Fed is also raising interest rates. It's the opposite basically of how we saw things in 2020, and that's creating a larger narrative for the entire equity market, not just in the Philippines but also globally. Robinson's commercial REIT, if you notice it, it's following almost the same progression. The 50-day moving average is acting as its resistance right now. The resistance for RCR is at 6.61. Its current support is at 6 pesos per share. So 50-day moving average is coinciding close also to where the resistance is. If you draw a trend line, at least for RCR, it will look like this. So it's still also similar to AREIT, moving across its downward trending slope. MACD is confirming the downward trending slope. You also have RSI across down from the RSI, similar to AREIT, which signifies a signal also for those who would want to consider selling at the resistance as well. So for people trading the range, 6 is your support, 6.61 is your resistance. Your next possible resistance is at the 100-day moving average, which is around 7.08. And as you all know, also failure to break out from this resistance. There's 3 resistances to look at here: the 50-day moving average, the downward trending slope, and the 6.61 area. So because of that, should there be any downward movement, as you can see right here, it's below the 20-day moving average already, which should have been the support level. So should you see downward action next week, possible retracement is 6, but the current range for where RCR is, 6 is your support, 6.61 is your resistance. Before I continue with the other set of REITs that I want to talk about, please do note also that all of this is under the lens of technical analysis. It's price action, it's volume, it's indicators. It's not a crystal ball, it's not a forecasting tool, but it's a risk management system to allow you to figure out where it's headed by looking at the range or by looking at the trend as well. This seems like a bit of jargon to all of you. 3 ways for you to learn more about this. Hundreds of videos that I created in YouTube for you to be able to be educated on this. That's number 1. Number 2, I've written 2 books that centers on technical analysis. Check it out down below. It's available via Shopee. Or number 3, if you want to learn online, we have a recorded Zoom course that you can actually watch and consume for more than a month for you to be able to watch and learn also if you want to know the rudiments of technical analysis and you want to build a firm foundation on it as well. Comment below if you're learning. Comment if this is something that's helping you and giving you as much understanding in the markets. I want to go with C-REIT. As you all know, I'm a big fan also of renewable energy. If you notice it also though, from a trend standpoint, it's looking pretty much still like majority of the REITs that we have. And please do note also, while all of this is happening, it's not just a function of what's happening in the REIT market, it's a function of what's happening in the broader market as well. You have larger downward strides for the entire market as a whole. So if you follow it also, it looks like almost the same theme. So it's also following the 50-day moving average. So the downward trending slope is following the 50-day moving average. The resistance is also following the 50-day moving average. So the resistance right now for C-REIT is somewhere around 2.46. The current support line is here around 2.33. MACD supporting the downward trending slope. It's still relatively bearish in terms of how it actually looks. 2.46 resistance, 2.34 support level. That's the current range. So as you see it also, it hit the resistance a couple of days ago, failed to break out. As a result of that, you see consecutive red candles. You see a breakdown from the 20-day support. Should it go back to the 2.34 level and stays at that level, it holds that level, that could be an area for you to be able to add. 2.34, target 2.46. If it breaks out from the 2.46 level, your next area of resistance is at the 2.59 mark. So by the way guys, if you want more stocks like this to be talked about, analyzed in the next video, put it down below and I'll try to make a video on top of that to be able to give you as much value as possible. We'll try to record it. We'll try to give you as much analysis to be able to help you trade the markets with confidence. So this is FOREX. So our resistance for FOREX right now is around 7.4. You have another resistance at 7.086. If you look at it, also similar to majority of the REITs that we're looking at, it's below the 20, 50, 100, and 200-day moving average. MACD supporting that it's relatively bearish. So right now, what we're seeing for FOREX is that it's a recipient of it breaking down from the 7.09 resistance. If you're gonna put in like a support level here, you have something around the 6.68 mark. So this is something you have to watch out for. If FOREX bounces, stays above the 6.69 mark, then that could be a buy. Then target price will be at the 7.09 mark. This is a 6.1% trade. If it breaks out further from the 7.09 mark, this is a 7.4% trade. So if it holds this level, this is your next target progression. Breaks out from this, it goes to 7.4%. But if 6.69 does not hold, then it furthers the breakdown of FOREX even further. As you all know right now, it's currently sitting very, very close to its lowest point, and that's why we have to watch out for 6.69 if it's a level that will actually hold as well. Last two stocks that I want to talk about, it's highly connected to REITs. Let's look at DDMPR. I guess the difference between DDMPR and the other REITs that we have is that from AREIT to MREIT to RCR, they all had their day where they pushed up after their listing. For DDMPR, it's been a very, very long and steady downward push from the time of its listing. And if you notice it also, but this is something similar also to all of the REITs that's in the market, the 200, 100, and 50-day moving averages are relatively bearish. It still hasn't broken out of this downward trending slope. Watch out for this trend line that I drew here. For it to actually reverse, push up, go higher, it must break out from this line. Full reversal, breakout from the 200-day moving average, which is somewhere close to right now the 1.68 mark. MACD is also below the zero line cross. Lastly, one of the new REITs that has been in the market, VREIT. So if you notice it, it's relatively new, not a lot of candlestick choices yet. I just want to note this also, that that's the entire crux of technical analysis. It's past prices. The more data you have in the past, the more analysis you could get, and the stronger the support and resistance that you have. But that's what's nice about technical analysis. Even if it's a short span of time, you still get to have data that you get to analyze. So right now, resistance is 1.77, support is 1.7. It's relatively a thin range. If you'll try to look at it here, the distance is just around 4.1%, so it's not as attractive, especially in the Philippine markets where there's no leverage. So one thing you would watch out for if selling continues is look at the 1.7 mark. If it holds and you're okay with a 4% trade, then 1.7 target will be 1.77. But if it breaks out from 1.77, there's no resistance and there could possibly be larger strides upward. However, if it breaks down from the 1.7 mark, as you all know, when a stock or a REIT breaks down from a support level and then there's no support anymore, there could be also larger downside. So since this REIT is relatively new, watch out for the support 1.7, breakdown, strides downward, 1.77, breakout, more strides upward because there's no resistance as well. I hope you guys got a lot from this. I hope that this was something that's insightful. Put down the stocks that you want for the next video and then we're gonna talk about it, we're gonna analyze it. I'm gonna also talk about the Philippine market in the next video to give you insights on how to see where the Philippine stock market is actually headed from a broader perspective. So if you also have questions, put them down below in the comment section and I'll try my best to answer them, or I'll try my best to be able to make videos to be able to answer your queries as well. If you stayed up until the end, I appreciate it if you could like, share, subscribe, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell, put a comment. It helps the YouTube algorithm a lot. And there, I just do hope that videos like this create value to all of you and it makes you greater investors, traders. It gives you a higher level of conviction in the markets. That's it for now. Marvingermo. I hope this video helps you trade well, trade strong, trade smart. See you all again soon and God bless you all.